it says the test is over module 6 and module 8. Cross out module 6. The only thing you have to study then for quiz 3 is only module 8. Is that helpful? Okay. So quiz 3, you're only going to have to look at module 8. Now, if you want to, you can take that. We're going to go over some of that material next week. So if you want to take that quiz earlier, the quiz is really pretty simple. I looked at it. You won't have any problem. I can open it and make sure if you want to take it next week, you can take it. But I'll go over that material on the crisis of death and some theological issues. And I think that will help you all. Okay. And then basically while I'm gone those 2 weeks, what you'll be needing to do is your second verbatim, and that will be dealing with somebody who's had a death in their family or in a friend or somehow has had a death, and you're going to be talking with them, working with them, using your counseling skills and working through that. I will be grading your verbatims. I'm assuming everybody got those in last night, and then I will this week grade those and get those back to you. It's probably good that you get them back before you start the next one, okay? Is that confusing? Any questions? Okay. So we will meet next week as normal and go over the theological issues of death and suffering and the crisis of death. And we will have no class then on July 20 and July 27. All right. During that time when I'm gone, start to think about a special type of loss or grief or death or whatever that you would like to write your paper on. It probably would be good if you kind of know what you want to do, so then when I'm not with you, then you'll have time to be able to work on that paper. I'm going to be gone a couple other weeks. I won't be with you in August to give you time to work on that paper. And then you guys are going to be presenting your papers the last 3 or 4 weeks of class. Okay. And then I'll do some going over topics too the last 3 or 4 weeks of class, but you also will be presenting. So if you all have some idea by next week, that would be really helpful to me, or I mean, especially to you guys, so you can start looking at the resources for that. If you can email me, that would be really good, and let me know what topic you want, and I'll approve it. I want everybody to have a different type of topic, and not everybody the same topic, or 2 or 3 people the same topic. So that's why I need to get your topic and approve it. Because if somebody else is doing the same topic, you'll have to change your topic. So the first ones that let me know have a better chance of getting what you want. Okay. Do you all understand about special types of topics? No questions? Okay. All right. Is that confusing? Is everybody okay?
Let me just clarify, the topic is about grief. Specifically, what What should we look for, ma'am? I mean,
Um,
yes.
a topic like dealing with a loss of a child. Maybe a parent has had a child that has died. What are some special things to look for when you're looking at the loss of a child or dealing with a parent with the loss of a child? Dealing with a miscarriage. What are some unique things when you're working with somebody, when you're dealing with somebody who has a miscarriage? Dealing with the loss of somebody maybe who has lost a hand or a leg or some kind of in some kind of an accident, something
Ma'am,
like that. Oh, go ahead.
can I do like loss of a familiar, ma'am? Like a pet companion, ma'am?
What
Because
companion?
a pet, ma'am. Like there are like people who really grieve the loss of their dogs or something like that. Or
Okay. If you want to do something with grieving the loss of a pet or an animal,
yes, ma'am.
okay. You may want to look and see what kind of information you can find on it as well.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you,
Mhm.
ma'am.
Okay, let me write your name down here so I know that's what you're looking at doing. Okay. Anybody else have a topic they're thinking of yet?
Maybe for me, ma'am, is miscarriage.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? One that you've been thinking of? Okay. All right. All right. Just think through that, what you want to do, and then send me an email and I'll let you know if that's something we've got. Or if next week you know of one by then, let me know. All right. One of the things that I was thinking of this week, these are some pretty hard things to deal with, is dealing with crisis and trauma. And I thought about the Bible, and I thought about when Jesus was crucified. And I think about the trauma, the physical, emotional, physiological, oh my goodness, the trauma that he went through. I cannot even begin to imagine. And it made me start thinking about what he went through for us and how excruciating it is for people in our lives that go through trauma. And so let's start in prayer and we can begin class. Father God, I'm so grateful for you and what you have done for us in our lives, and that you went through trauma for us and giving your life for us. I can't imagine all that you went through with the beatings and the painful spikes through your hands, the crown of thorns on your head, the trauma that you were going to endure for us. And Father, I'm just so grateful for who you are and how you continue to love us, and you understand so much of what we go through in our own lives when we go through trauma and crisis and difficulties. Your life was filled with so many different crises and things that went on in your life, but yet you continued to persevere, and you continued to live a perfect life to show us that it's possible, and that you're beside us, and you understand, and you hear, and you're there to help us and to help us heal. We thank you so much for who you are in our life, and for each one of these men and women that are so committed to loving you and to sharing you with others. Father, continue to be with them in their lives as they've gone through crisis and trauma and things that have been difficult. Continue to help them to know how much you care about them and how much you're with them. Thank you that they also are available to help others in ministry. Father, such a calling is not an easy calling. And Father, I'm so grateful that you promised to be with them no matter what, and you will help them and encourage them. Thank you for who they are. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, man, I'm just so grateful for each one of you all in your ministry. Ministry is not easy. I mean, you all know. There are times that it's really hard. It's pretty lonely. It's pretty tough. But we've got a great God that cares so deeply for us, and he's there for us every minute of the way. And he will never leave you nor forsake you. So I hope you continue to always remember that. All right, let's start with our PowerPoint, and we're going to start out with crisis. And then we will go to trauma and trying to understand what the difference is between one and the other. I don't know, in Tagalog, is there a word for crisis and a word for trauma? What's the word for crisis in Tagalog?
Crisis.
Crisis.
Just crisis?
Yeah.
What's trauma?
Trauma.
Really? Just trauma? All right. Okay, that's simple. All right, I got it. That's good. All right, let me find my crisis one here, and then we will go through this and work with you. All right. Number one, then the next slide. This is just some things that we're going to go through. We're going to talk about crisis, distinctives of them, types of crisis. We're going to talk about caring for people, the phases of a crisis. We talked about that last week a little bit, and then crisis intervention. All right, here we go. Next slide. These are just some verses that I put down here. It says, yet a man is born to trouble as surely as sparks fly upward. A man born to women is a few days and full of trouble. Okay, of course, that's these verses, of course, are from Job and all his trouble that he was going through. And oh my goodness, all that he had to go through. Another verse in John, these things I've spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation. Or I could change that word and say crisis and trauma. But be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. Okay, the next one. Here's another verse. We know that we are children of God, and that the whole world is under the control of the evil one. We know also that the Son of God has come and has given us understanding, so that we know him who is true, and we are in him who is true, even his Son, Jesus Christ. He is the true God and eternal life. You know, Satan is so, oh my goodness, it seems like, you know, when I look at the world and things going on with television and news, and I think how Satan is alive and well, but we also know that Jesus Christ has overcome the world, and that in the end he wins, even though it seems like there's a lot of bad things happening. And I know in the Philippines there's so much going on with typhoons and some political issues going on, I've noticed over there. Just so many natural disasters that happen. There's so much going on, but yet we have Christ that is our ultimate savior, and he has overcome the world. So I think that was important for me to know. All right, let's look at the definition of a crisis. All right, these are some things here that I just put down about what a crisis is. Really, it's an event in life that's predictable or anticipated. These are things that are not out of the ordinary things that happen. I go ahead and these are, I was trying to think, these are really predictable things that happen in a crisis. Somebody, I'm just trying to think. I think of developmental crisis. We're going to talk about different types of crisis. One of them is a developmental crisis. You know, teenagers kind of get to a point in their life where they kind of go through a developmental crisis, breaking away from their parents. You know, they're learning how to get out on their own. And sometimes there's a lot of push against their parents to get out on their own. And it's kind of a developmental crisis they come to. Sometimes you come to a crisis of you're graduating from seminary and you don't really have a church where you can go, and you're trying to figure out what in the world I'm going to do. And it can kind of be a crisis if you don't have a place to go and you're trying to figure out what am I going to do next, or where am I going to go. Sometimes you have a crisis. Sometimes you have a crisis when you feel like you're flunking out of a class and you have to have it to graduate, and it kind of becomes a crisis. These are kind of normal things that happen. Some of you may have a financial crisis. You get to the end of the month and there's really no money left. And it's like, oh my goodness, that's kind of a crisis. These are kind of things that in some ways you can kind of predict they're going to happen, or these are not strange things that happen, but pretty common kinds of things that happen. It's kind of Webster, one of the dictionaries here says it's kind of a turning point. You get to a place and it's kind of a crisis, and it's like, okay, we've got to do something. You know, our son is out of control, so what are we going to do? Or I think that's more in America than the Philippines. It seems like kids in America are having a worse time. Those are the kind of things. Okay, go on to the next one. Now, trauma, we're going to talk about trauma later on in the class today, but a trauma is more or less something that's really out of the norm, or it says talk about outside the human experience. It's something that's not expected, like a typhoon, or when there's an avalanche kind of thing and there's a big mudslide that comes down, or a bad accident, or a war, if there's a war, or somebody that's been raped. These are not typical things that you kind of expect may happen. They're things that are very much out of the ordinary. So that's what makes the different definitions a little bit different. Okay, go on to the next, and we'll look at this. Think about, what are some kind of crises that you've experienced? Any kind of crisis that you guys have gone through? These are some examples of crisis here. Somebody has lost his job, stealing, financial crisis. My freshman year of college, I flunked pre-calculus. I made a D in Old Testament. I think I made a C in English and a B in chemistry. Science was the only thing I could do. And I wanted to be a doctor. And I knew at that point in my life, I could never be a doctor. My grades were hopeless. And so I changed to nursing. So that was a huge crisis in my life. So what are some crises that you guys go through? Anybody have a crisis?
Go, Pastor.
No?
Ikaw muna, Sir Collins.
For me, ma'am,
Okay.
so back in college, I was dancing, like competing as a dancer.
Yes.
And when I graduated, I really wanted to compete in the international scene, but I had to deal with my financial needs. So there was this crisis for me to either continue my dream or to pursue work.
Yep.
So I had to choose work instead.
That's hard, isn't it?
Yes.
Something you wish you could do and you can't. Collins, I would have never guessed that you were a dancer. I am so impressed.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. I think that's great. Anybody else have a crisis?
For me, ma'am,
Uh-huh.
yes. Before I want to be a policeman.
Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am. That's my dream, and I try to take the PNPA for two
Okay.
times exam,
Right.
but I fail. And after that, I still have the passion to continue that by getting a criminology course.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, I did not expect that I had this problem of hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So after my surgery operation, I have this problem about my hearing. So I did not continue na. Instead, I take minister.
Okay.
I went to seminary to take this course, and until now I am now a pastor instead of becoming a policeman. But you know, ma'am, PNP in Tagalog is Pulis ng Panginoon.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah,
in Tagalog.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. That's hard. It's hard when you have to give up your dream and because of physical issues. Okay. Anybody else? One more.
Me,
Huh? Okay.
yeah, in 2009, there was a big landslide here in Baguio City,
Huh?
and my family was one among those who were victims of that typhoon, a strong typhoon here. And I lost my mom and my three siblings at one time.
Oh.
Yeah. My brother, my only brother, and my two sisters. Yeah, and I really went through a very rough time for many years.
Oh, Faye. Oh my goodness. You know, Faye, that would be considered a trauma.
Yeah, it is indeed a trauma.
It's a trauma. Wow. Do you have any other siblings?
Yeah, I have two other siblings left. My
Oh,
older sister and we're six in the family.
oh my
I have
goodness.
five siblings, and yeah, for three of them are gone, and three of us were left behind, and my father. So we're the survivors.
Oh, Faye. Oh my goodness. I can't imagine what you've been through. That is just, oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. That is really hard. Wow. So your mom and three siblings.
Yeah,
I'm making little notes as I go along. I always write little things down to remember about students. All right, that is an example of a trauma that she talked about, a very traumatic experience, something that is totally out of the ordinary that you would not expect. Now, a crisis that's written down here is death of the mother. This would probably be more of a natural kind of a death and not a traumatic death. All right, let's go on to the next one. These are different types of crisis that that we can have, or different. I mean, sorry, different. I guess you'd say different. It calls it distinctives, but I also think of it different responses to a crisis, and probably Collins and Delmas, you probably had some of these bewildered, sort of like, what do I do now? There's some feeling maybe of some danger, like if I don't get a job, what will happen? Or because of your hearing, what am I going to do now? But that's not really a danger. Confusion, that's also oftentimes come. An impasse, it's like I'm stuck, what am I going to do now? I don't know, Delmos, if you went through some of that, it's like, what am I going to do now? I want to do this, but what am I going to do? So what you call impasse. Sometimes people feel desperate when they're in a crisis. Financial crisis is like, we just don't have any money. How are we going to make it through the semester? We need tuition money. What can we sell? What can we do? What can, a kind of crisis. Apathy, sometimes you get feeling like, oh, what's the use? I mean, it's just, sometimes feeling helpless. Sometimes there's a sense of urgency. I need some help right now. I'm in the middle of a crisis. Okay, what am I going to do? I call somebody, get somebody, what kind of help do I need? And then there's also some discomfort. You feel kind of miserable. You don't feel good about the situation. All right, the next slide talks about some types of crisis. I was trying to think, do you have some of these distinctives when you were in a crisis? Let's go on to do any of y'all have, when you guys were in a crisis, these are other ones in our class, not Delmas and Collins and Faye. You've already talked. Let's give some of the others a chance. When you're in a crisis, which one of these do you have? If you have any of those, maybe you better call it symptoms or thoughts or feelings or...
Yeah. Desperation, Mom, for me.
Okay.
Discomfort.
Okay.
Is that? Yeah, I think that's the most, Mom, for me.
Okay. Anybody else when you're in a crisis?
For me, ma'am, I've experienced urgency. I had also, confusion and desperation.
Okay.
Yes.
For me, ma'am,
Mm-hmm.
I experienced apathy, ma'am, and discomfort, but mostly apathy.
Okay.
Mom, for me is confusion.
Okay. I think when we work with somebody going through a crisis, it's sometimes good to kind of be aware or to know these different things that people are going through. Because some of you said confusion, some of you said apathy. So what is it that they are needing more help with? If you have apathy, then how you help somebody might be different than if they're confused. So it's kind of, there's just different thoughts dealing with crisis. Okay, let's go on. And there's different types of crises. That's the next slide. There's developmental crisis. This is what I talked about, a teenager that's, getting out on their own and has a crisis of maybe dating and how to date and being turned down by a girl they want to date or that type of a thing for a developmental crisis. Sometimes people that are getting ready to retire, they have a crisis. It's a developmental crisis, different stages of life. It's like, if I retire, what am I going to do? Or if I retire, we don't have as much income, so how are we going to make it? Those are kind of developmental crises. Situational crisis. This may be economic situation, health crisis, things that come up unexpectedly. Existential crises are this kind of impacts people's beliefs about things, their way of looking at the world. I thought the world was good, and now I found out the world's not so good. I thought people were honest, and I found out they're not honest. Maybe our feeling about freedom. I thought I had a lot more freedom, and now I don't have freedom. Those are kind of existential kinds of things. Interpersonal. These are crises that happen with relationships. A husband and wife can't get along. A mother and son can't get along. A boss and an employee have a difference of opinions, and there's a crisis, or the company doesn't have any more money and needs to take, help, needs to have you not get paid as much, or says we can't continue to hire you because of lack of finances or something. So that may be more situational, but interpersonal will be relationship kinds of things. Then there's also spiritual crisis. This is when people wrestle with their faith, with who God really is. Is God really who he says he is in my life? Can I really believe what God says about who he is? Those are kinds of types of crises. The other thing to look at when you're looking at different crises, the next slide will give you some also different things that go on with different age groups. What people are looking at age 1 to 12, their developmental crisis is really different than somebody who's age 65 and older. Their interpersonal relationship crises are very different. A kid age 2, 3, and 4 may have problems when you take them to church, and they're when you take them someplace that's unfamiliar and leave them with somebody they don't know, they're afraid to be by themselves because they're in an unfamiliar situation, versus somebody who's 19 to 28 leaving home for the first time and being on their own, or somebody who's 90 years old and can't function. There's different things that go on at these different age groups. So to remember that too when you're dealing with crisis. Different ages and different types of crisis. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This is something that I think about, is what does it mean to say we really care about people? Think about what percentage of the people whom we come in contact with that are in a crisis are we really helpful? And what makes it helpful? Lots of times I think about, when I'm in a crisis, what do I need? And I think all of us need different things when we're in a crisis. What do you all need when you're in crisis? Usually when you're in crisis, what helps you the most, or what is the most, I guess, what's the most helpful to you in a crisis? Okay, solution. All right.
Supportive people.
Okay, supportive people. What else? I do better if I have somebody just to talk it out with, the crisis, and then it helps me kind of figure out what I want to do when I can at least talk it out with somebody. I just need somebody to listen most of the time. Okay. What else do you all need?
For me, ma'am. Oh, sorry.
Recollection.
Pardon?
Time to recollect my thoughts.
Okay. Now, do some of you all need more time to just sit back, and more of an introvert, and you just need time to withdraw by yourself? I know
Yeah.
my husband is an introvert and he just needs time to get back and just focus and think to himself. He doesn't need me to talk. Or listen. He just says, I just need my space. Anybody need anything else?
Silence.
Silence. Okay. Faye, you and my husband make great partners needing silence.
Good, ma'am.
Yes.
A change of scenery, ma'am.
Oh yeah, I like that. Gigi, I need your email address so I don't forget it here. When we get done with class, if you I've been sending you some emails, but I think they're not getting to you.
Oh, okay, ma'am.
I just need that. Sorry, I'm in the middle and just tried to remember that. Okay. All right. What are some ways that people are not helpful in the way they care? Yep. That's a big one. That's probably something very common. Anything else?
When they try to tell you how to feel.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. Is it hard to go over the thing a lot? Okay. And you're feeling more like you want solutions, right? Okay. Want people to give you some options of what to do. Okay. Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's go into the next one. This is just a comment about what it means to care for somebody or helping somebody and helping others to grow. I have to make sure I don't impose my own direction on that person and telling them what to do specifically. Rather, I allow the direction of the other person's, their growth, to guide me in what I do and to help determine how I am to respond and what's relevant. I have to think about what's best for that person and how can I help them grow in the way they want to grow and help them in that way. Does that make sense? The other person is independent in their own right and needs me to respect that and to help work with them in a caring way that will help them continue that growth. I also recognize that people that are growing in a way that I see is detrimental to them or turning them away from God or to know how to, in a very caring and loving way, be able to share with them. But I also have to realize, sometimes people who aren't Christians, I can share, but and I have to find a good way of caring with them that doesn't put them down or turn them off, but finds ways that will speak to them that God will be able to use in a caring way. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next one. Now, this next one, oops, sorry. What did I do? Okay. This next one talks about some of the ingredients of caring. What's important about caring? When you're caring for somebody that's in a crisis, have some knowledge about what's going on, understanding the person's their real needs. Sometimes I think they need something, but that may not be what they're needing in that crisis, and saying, what particular thing are you needing that I can help you with, to get some information and more knowledge about that. The part here about self-evaluation, I try to look at myself and think about my behavior and how I'm really connecting with that person, and am I really helping them? I always think about that. Am I really, am I doing what I think is best, or am I doing what is best that really is helping that person? One is patience. Sometimes people in crisis, there's an immediate crisis to really help them with, but then there may be a point where I need to have more patience with the person as they're processing through the crisis and working through it, learning to have that patience. Sometimes I want them to move faster and heal better than, or work through it faster than they need to, or that they are able to do that. So patience. Also, patience has to do not just with time, but also with space, giving them some space to process and not think they have to go faster than what I may think they need. Trust is a big one. Can they really trust me? Setting up a safe place where they can feel like they can really trust to be open with me as part of caring. Honesty is one. I have down here, seeing oneself and the other as we actually are, and not what we would like others to think or would like the other person to be. To be honest in our conversation and sharing with the person. Humility, remember you don't know it all. I don't know it all. And to be really humble and say, I don't know. There are times when it's, you say, I don't know. Sometimes I say, I don't know. Let me see if I can find some answers, or say, sometimes we just don't know. And it's okay. Or it's a process of learning, and you may not know now. Some things we won't know till we get to heaven. So humility, hope, giving hope to a person, that is so important. Because many times in a crisis, they're very discouraged, or they feel like nothing's going to change, but giving them a sense of hope. And the last one I've got is courage. It's a prerequisite for hope, I put here. There's also a risk involved as we care for another and we do not know the outcome. We lay down some part of our lives for the other in the helping process. So courage. Okay. All right. Any comments? Which one do you think of these ingredients of caring do I have? Which one do I need to work on? As you care for people in crisis, is there something there that you need to work on, or something that you feel like you do well with when you're working with somebody?
For me, Mom, I need to work more with knowledge,
Okay.
patience,
Okay.
and honesty, Mom.
Okay.
That's for me.
Anybody else?
I'd say patience also.
Okay.
Yeah, since recently, ma'am, for if whenever I would counsel people that are close to me,
Uh-huh.
it's a different thing than counseling someone that's not that close. Like,
Yes. No.
yeah, they would get on my nerves sometimes. So yes, ma'am, patience.
That's not, oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Mhm, mhm. Mm, mhm. Right. Mhm. Wow. I think I agree with that. Presence is so important in a crisis, to know that somebody is there for you, just to sit with you, to hear, to listen, to just be present. So many times in crisis situations, just to sit beside the person and allow them just to sit in silence or to talk and just be there. One of the most powerful things. Mhm. I think oftentimes we don't realize that. Thank you, Randy. Okay. All right. Go on. The next couple. This was just some questions about what we talked about. And then the next one is phases of crisis. I think we talked about this a little bit last week. Remember, when you're in a crisis, you have that impact phase that you're dealing with. This usually lasts a few hours to days, a few days. You're not able to think well, disoriented, overwhelmed with feelings. Your insight into things is pretty limited. If somebody's died, you kind of hold on to that attachment of that person, sometimes have guilt feelings. So, this is a time to really have that calm presence. Randy talked about silence, allow a person to talk about their feelings and to share what's going on. Then phase 2 oftentimes is sort of a withdrawal or confusion time after a crisis or a death or a crisis. It lasts from days to maybe weeks. You have a lot of emotional turmoil with it. You feel worn out emotionally, maybe depressed, deny some of your feelings. You might feel stuck, sort of immobilized with some of your feelings that are going on. This is a time when the person oftentimes will need extra support, extra care, extra help with that. Then in phase 2, the next, go ahead 2 or 3 more slides. Oh, no, I guess not. I guess I don't have it down there. Phase 2, that I guess, yeah. Phase 2 is kind of this withdrawal or confusion time. And just allow the person to vent, to talk about their feelings, give them options about what they can do if they don't know what to do next with the crisis. And then 3, adjustment phase. People finally then move to being able to adjust. This lasts from weeks to months. And this phase probably takes longer than any other phase to help a person with the crisis. They pretty much, at this point, like especially if somebody's died, they pretty much have gotten through the detachment phase of somebody who has died, or that they've lost something they've lost, and they begin to look for something new out there, something different, some new ways of living. And then the last one is a reconstruction phase. And this takes months. This is when hope's finally returned. They're more self-confident. They've got new strength, new perspective on life. So these are kind of the stages a person goes through working through a crisis. Okay, let's go on to the next one. What is crisis I just put down what is crisis intervention, and I put down it's an immediate and short-term emergency response to mental, emotional, physical, and behavioral distress. Crisis intervention helps us restore an individual's equilibrium and helps them get back to functioning and minimizing the long-term trauma or distress that they have. So I'll just leave with the last one, I think, is there one on H. Norman Wright? This is just some of H. Norman Wright. And these are the steps he had. We just talked about the simple ones about phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. H. Norman Wright is your author that you've been reading, and he talks about these 8 steps, which makes them pretty much the same. You have immediate intervention in the crisis where you're with the person, presence and listening and be there. Then action that has to happen. If there's some action that needs to happen, either the person or you help them with the balance, give them hope, provide that support, help them with the problem solving, understanding and assessing the self-image or who they think they are, where they're at, and then help them to feel like they can do it now on their own or take care of themselves. So it's basically the same type of thing. Okay. All right. And then here's some verses. Here's some verses at the end that I just put, that I'll just let you read them yourself. God is our shelter and strength. Cast anxiety on God. He cares. Bring me out of my distress. This is David talking. Think about my affliction, my trouble, forgive my sins. Psalms has a lot of great verses dealing with David and his heart and just pouring it out to God in the midst of crisis or trauma or all those things that went on in his life. All right. We've gotten through crisis. Any more questions on crisis? Any more questions on crisis?
Ma'am, just about the phases. Is it
Yes.
possible for a person to stay stuck in phase 2, like the confusion part?
Yes.
Mhm.
You can get stuck and have a difficult time moving on. Usually people in a crisis, often, yeah, and it depends on the situation. The other thing I always say too is if a person's had like a few crises in their life versus somebody who's had a lot of crises, people that have had a lot of crises in their life, it's cumulative. So if you've had 1 or 2 things that have happened versus somebody that's had 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 things that have happened, it's maybe even harder for that person to deal with the crisis because of all the crises in their past. It's the same thing with trauma. When we start talking with trauma, you can have one thing that's happened to you, or you can have several things of trauma that happen to you. And being able to deal with multiple traumas is a whole lot more difficult than dealing with you've just gone through one trauma. And we'll talk about that when we get into trauma in a few minutes. So yes, you can get stuck in that. It's like going through also the grief process. You can get stuck in the grief process and have a difficult time getting out. And remember, we talked about when we're dealing with grief, if you've had a really dysfunctional childhood growing up, that will add to the difficulty of working through a crisis. And so that, there's other, different factors to look at as well, going through a crisis. Any other comments, questions? Okay, do you guys need a 10-minute break while we get ready to start on trauma?
Sure, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. I would say people get stuck probably more in phase two. Phase two, I think, would be the phase what a lot of people would get stuck in. Possibly phase three. I think those two are the hardest. Probably two is probably the one that people get stuck in the most. All right, I'll give everybody a break. If some of you all need a 10-minute break. 3:50 or 9:50 will come back. If some of you have questions while we're here, I'm happy to answer them. I'm looking, Gigi, I need your email, and I'm trying to think. There was one of you that I think, Gigi, was it you that I don't have your paper? I think you tried to send it to me, and did I not get it?
Hi, ma'am.
The time of loss timeline.
I just checked my email, so I was checking my school email, but then I checked my personal email. It's going to the spam, so I just fixed it now.
Okay.
Sorry, ma'am. So I received your email. Yeah.
If you could do that timeline, lost timeline, and send it again to me.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Yes,
Is
I'll
it
do it.
is it this? Is that the correct email that I had?
Yeah. That's my personal email. The ics.gaga28.
Sure, I got that one. Okay, tell me that again.
ICS dot
ICS or IG or IC as in cat or G as
yeah
in
C as in cat
okay. ICS.
dot gege 28 at gmail.com. So that's my personal email, ma'am. But yeah, it's good. It's okay if it's not the PBTS email. It's okay.
Okay, do you have the PBTS one?
Yeah. It's John
Okay.
JOHN
Okay.
dot Nantes,
NANTES.
yes, at pbts.edu.ph.
Okay. All right. I got to make sure that I've
Thank you,
got that.
ma'am.
You're welcome. Okay. I think Janice did. Okay, let's see. I think Julian did one. All right. Oh. All right, let's see. Um, okay, trauma. Okay. All right. Yes, sir. Mm, frontal cortex, campus.
Anne, excuse me
Yes.
po.
Mhm. Yes.
I would like to ask something. I
Yes.
think I'm stuck in the showing care phase. um, I've been learning recently that it's not always appropriate to show care by giving a Bible verse because
Yes.
usually that's what I do. If I
Mhm.
hear someone is going through something, I share with them a Bible verse. But yeah, recently I learned it's not always appropriate.
Mhm.
So what would you say is a good guideline for when to show care by giving a Bible verse or just don't?
Um, it usually when somebody's right in the middle of a crisis, I wouldn't do that. Because sometimes it comes across as like a pat answer, something to comfort the person, but the person can say, well, that doesn't comfort me at all. I mean, it's like, I'm just upset, or I'm just angry, or I'm just, because most of the time, if they're a Christian, they know that God's there, that God's there to comfort them, that God's present. So I might wait till maybe like phase 2. I wait till a little later, and it also depends on the person. The other thing too is that I would, even with praying, I always ask and say, would you like me to pray for you while we're together? And I always ask because I never assume that, and I don't always have to pray. Sometimes I can just put my hand on their shoulders and say, I'm praying for you, or it's really hard right now, or sometimes it's hard to know why God allowed this, or sometimes it, and it just depends on the person. But a lot of times in the very beginning, if you share verses, it comes across, especially, God will take care of things. Well, it's like, well, God didn't take care of things right now because everything's a mess, so helping them being able just to talk about it and just to be present and just to listen is some of the best things. And if they want you to pray, if you ask and say, would you like me to pray? Oftentimes they'll say, what would you like me to pray for about this situation? Because I want to pray what they are needing and not what I think they're needing. Because I don't really know what they're needing unless I ask. In the middle of a crisis, usually in the middle of a crisis, there's so much. There's a lot going on emotionally, and it's hard for them sometimes even to concentrate or to focus. Even if you do pray, they, and it just depends. Sometimes they expect the pastor to pray, and if they don't, it's like, I think so. So it's hard to know. Or to just pray and say, God, this is really a tough situation, and we don't have all the answers, and we just want you to be present and continue to give help to whoever it is, or continue to be there to comfort and give wisdom.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you po.
Those kind of things. Anybody else have suggestions? What do some of the rest of you think? What have you experienced in these kinds of things in your pastoral ministry? Randy. Okay. Sure. Yeah, it's like we have to be so careful nowadays with, you know, not looking like we're, taking advantage of a woman, or that we're doing something improper, and it's something that's really, something we have to be really aware of in our ministry now, a lot more than we used to be 10 or 20 years ago, or 20 years ago. And I think it's very important. So thank you, Randy, for sharing that. Anybody else have thoughts on that? I know it at one church that I was at, they made sure that they had a window in the door at the church, where the pastor's offices. There was like a thin window. It was long and not real wide, but it was still a window, so you could always look in an office, to see what was happening or not happening or whatever. And that was helpful for counseling, or for, if you're working with somebody. Some pastors would rather have their wife go with them if they're counseling at their office, or have, to have the door partway opened, or if you go to a woman's house, to have your spouse with you is something that, or another pastor in the church too, if you go. Go ahead.
Sorry. For me, ma'am, there's one time that I experienced in counseling young teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be a point whenever you can't count on the parents to help, especially if the parents are the problem. Sometimes you really need to be the one to extend, like, the mediation, and
Mm-hmm.
also the guidance as well. There was
Right.
this one time, ma'am, that I dealt with a young teenager who's had an abusive father,
Mm.
and she told me that one time she was sleeping, and then her father tried to take advantage of her, and
Mm.
so we had to take action
Sure.
because
Yeah.
that was a serious thing.
Oh
So
yeah.
we called out the father and really talked to him in private. So yeah, sometimes you really need to take action as fast as possible.
Sure. Oh,
Yes.
sure, to protect those in your church. Did you
Yes.
all include the mother in the conversation?
Yes, ma'am. Because the
Okay.
mother was like enabling, ma'am, somehow.
Oh yeah.
Like
Right.
she was like disregarding what happened. Her
Oh.
father's just acting sweet, something like that.
Mm-mm.
And so we really had
Yes,
to
you
step
must.
in. Yeah.
You must. You must. Mhm. Yeah, I know in the United States, we're required, pastors are required to report things like that to, we have what we call DFACS, or a place that, if we know a child is being abused or sexually molested, or elder abuse, those kind of things, we report it, and then they will go and check and talk with the family and find out what the issue is and resolve it, or take the child out of the home, or have the parent go for special help, or whatever they deal with it. We have to report it. I don't. So safety for those that we work with that are being abused is so important. Good. Thank you, Collins, for sharing that. Okay, let's do the next one on trauma. And I think this will help to do the crisis and trauma together so you can kind of see the difference and how they're the same and how they're different. And Randy, if you can put that one up. Randy, I don't know if you don't show up for class, we're stuck because I still don't know how to put up a PowerPoint. So thank you. All right, this one, go ahead to the next one, this next slide. This is what we're going to talk about, just the introduction about what trauma is and the effects. And then we're going to go into 3 different areas of dealing with trauma. One is acute stress disorder, one's post-traumatic stress disorder, and one's complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I think those 3 will talk about when a person is in crisis, they can go into acute stress or PTSD or complex post-traumatic stress disorder if it's that traumatic or the crisis is bad enough. But usually it's a trauma that will go into a trauma situation. Okay, let's go on to the next one. All right, how would you define, next one. How would you define a trauma and examples of trauma? How do you define trauma and what are some examples? Some of you who haven't talked yet tonight, jump in there and share your input here. We're waiting for your input. Mark, can you jump in there, or Gerald, Jill, Gigi, Simon, Joanna? How would you define trauma and what are some examples of trauma?
I can try, ma'am.
Okay, go for it.
For me, it's something that it could be unexpected event that happened that is hard, that is so hard for a person to like cope with.
Okay. Okay. Can you think of an example?
Maybe, maybe I was thinking about like something sudden, like maybe in the family, the cutting of. I'm not sure, mom. Okay, like, but
That's good.
like
You're
for
trying.
example, it's I feel like it's mine. Yeah. So like for let me allow me to share, like in our family we had this gathering, like we have a big family,
Okay.
and like that I really enjoyed the bond with my cousins. And then one event, when people were just inebriated, like they were celebrating, and then there's alcohol and stuff. But then all of a sudden there's this commotion that yeah, I don't really exactly even know what happened, but it just happened that people, like my cousins, were suddenly fighting with each other, like physical fighting. And then it led to us being sent away from where we were gathered. And then it got so big, the fight got so big that we ended up in court with our other family members. So it was just so hard to process at that time. And like it took us, our family, I think, years to repair that bond with our other members, other extended family. Yeah.
Wow. That's really hard. I can't imagine what that was like. Very difficult.
Hmm.
especially when it's your own personal family,
Mm-hmm.
and how difficult that is. Okay, thank you, Julian, for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's hard, very hard. Thank you for trusting us enough to do that. Okay, John?
Right.
Uh,
For
Geek. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. For me, I'd like to try this definition, ma'am.
Okay.
Trauma is something, an event in your life that causes an unhealthy amount of stress and leaves a lasting effect.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good one. It's a
So,
good.
for example, if you were a kid and your parents asked you to go to the store, but then when you went to the store, you got surrounded by a group of dogs. So that's a traumatic event, and then you won't go near any dogs anymore in the future.
Yep, that's a big traumatic event. Yeah, yeah, that's a really really good one. Okay, Mark.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Actually, for me, is trauma is the long-lasting psychological impact of a deeply distressing event.
Uh-huh.
Like example, if I caught my situation before, so I just want to share. So this is my example. When I was young, I mean, I experienced a lot of trauma during my childhood.
Okay.
So especially when my parents left us, and because of
Your
that,
parent.
my life became miserable, and I had to learn to work.
Mhm.
Also, I remember the time that the most painful source that I experienced is when they abandoned me. I experienced accident where I was run over by the truck, which left me deeply fearful. So very hard to forget that situation until now. Even I forgive my mom, my parents, but until now it's like there's a scars in my mind, in my heart because of that situation. Not only on that, also in during pandemic time, all of us know what happened before the pandemic time. So I have a lot of relatives who die on that situation. My two aunties and my uncles and also my grandmother who care for us, they passed away. First is my aunt and my uncle. They died from COVID-19. Later on that, after they buried my uncle, died again. That's my cousin of my mom. And when after he passed, just as he was about to be laid to rest, my grandmother died as well on that day. So I remember that is February 1. So after my uncle, after they buried my uncle in the middle of the night. I mean, in the middle of the night, after they buried him in the middle of the night, my grandmother died also.
Wow.
So, like what I said a while ago, ma'am, is until now, although uh, it's hard, but I need to be strong. Even in my age right now, I'm still thinking about what happened to my situation before. Sometimes, uh, if I'm tired during the ministry, what I did is to travel and try to ask God, Lord, uh, why I experienced this situation. Every time I always remember this experience, especially when I experienced my childhood situation, the abandonment of my family. So yeah, that's for me. So like what I said, it's a long-lasting psychological impact for me.
Mark, I'm so sorry what happened to you. I cannot imagine what that was like as a child to be abandoned. I just can't even begin to imagine. And then any of your family that may have reached out to you, like grandparents or aunts and uncles, or, and they died. And oh my goodness.
Actually, ma'am, actually, other people they call me like a cat. because I experienced 7 times. 7 times car accident. Experienced that before.
Seven
7 times
times, seven times what?
a car accident.
An accident.
Yeah. And the last one is when, like what I said a while ago, when I was run over by the truck. So it's like I'm in the hospital for almost 2 months.
So you're living with a lot of trauma.
Yes, super. So, but I'm still thankful to God. I know there's purpose by experiencing that. So one of my, like we call that, one of my prayer right now is I don't want to experience again that situation, and also in my future family I don't want to experience that situation. So I'm very thankful also because I experienced that. So it's like a lesson from me, a lesson so that I know what to do for the future, for my future plan.
Mark, are you married?
Not yet, ma'am, but I'm maybe this coming next year, March.
Okay.
I'm planning.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I can't imagine what you've been through, and to be kind to yourself, and if you need help processing things, to make sure you get that. Because it's not just one thing that happened in your life, it's many, many things. And as I said, trauma is cumulative, or crisis is a cumulative thing, and it piles up. And when another trauma happens or another crisis happens, then it's even more difficult to work through. So to take care of yourself, get help if you need it, processing things. And you may have already or been able to work through it, but you've been through a lot of trauma. Okay, thank you for sharing that, Mark.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you also.
Okay, let's go on to the next slide. All right, trauma, these are some definitions that I gave. Something unexpected, which you all talked about, something that's out of the typical regular human experience. Something overwhelms the normal coping. It's not the result of stress, and it functions independently from what else is taking place in a person's life. Crisis does not produce trauma. Crisis usually is different because it's some normal things that happen in our life. Trauma is more or less things that we are not really have anything to do with, and they happen. Let me give you some examples. This might help you guys. I'll go on to the next slide. This can give you some examples of some trauma. Natural disasters. Next one. Accidents that happen. Is what we call it. I put down torture that have been raped, crime victims, assault, and what you talked about being abandoned as a child, that would go under that, child abuse. Okay, so these are types of trauma. These are things that are out of the ordinary that we don't expect to happen, and they happen to us. You were talking, Julian. I think you were talking about. No, wait, who was? Julian? That was. You were talking about your mother that was killed, and 3 siblings. Did I have the right person? I hope so. Oh no, that was was talking about your mother and your 3 siblings that were killed, and that would be a trauma, definitely. Okay, go on to the next one. Let me see. Let me make a note here. Um, where's Julian? Mom, mom and 3. I just wanted to make some notes here. Okay. There's 2 types of trauma. We talk about trauma 1 and trauma 2. Trauma 1 we call is basically a single event that happens. Trauma 2 is when there's multiple traumas that happen to a person. Repeated traumas, different things that have happened. Mark talked about different things that have happened to him, maybe more of a type 2 trauma. Single event trauma would be more of like it happened one time. All right, let's go on to the next one. Talked about in the Bible, the word appears in various forms, and trauma really means wounded. And one of the stories that comes up to my mind is about the Good Samaritan. And he took pity on the man that was laying by the side of the road and had been hurt and wounded by people that had come by and had done this to him, and how he took him into the inn. And I think about that he treats the man, and the word would be wounds, or it's also considered the word there, wound there would be trauma. So I thought that was an interesting thought. There's lots of stories in the Bible where you could look at it and think of trauma. I mean, I think of Job, oh my goodness, and what he went through. I look at David in the Bible and how he was pursued by King Saul and trying to kill him. And I think of that. It's hard to think, is that a crisis or a trauma? Sometimes it's hard to kind of guess, is it a crisis or a trauma? But I would kind of think it's kind of out of the ordinary, somebody chasing you and trying to kill you. I would think that would be more of a trauma. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, can you think of other Bible stories that deal with trauma?
Joseph.
Joseph, yeah. Oh my goodness, can you imagine being stuck in a pit and thinking you're going to be killed? And yeah, that's trauma.
Elijah.
Yes, yes. Anybody else?
Jesus, ma'am.
Oh, for sure. Oh man, I can't even watch movies that depict Jesus being killed, and I just can't even. It just breaks my heart. Yeah, Janice?
Isaac, when Abraham took him to
Yes. Oh, can you imagine? I can't imagine a parent doing that. All right.
How about Job, ma'am? I think Job.
About
also.
who? Oh
Job.
my goodness. Oh, I can't imagine. He lost everything. Trauma. A lot of trauma. Okay, let's go on to the next. We're going to look at some of the effects of trauma. All right, the symptoms of trauma. People have trauma. What do you think are some cognitive symptoms that go with their thinking? What are some symptoms when somebody has trauma? What happens with their thinking abilities? Okay.
Disoriented.
Pardon?
Disoriented.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Unable to make decisions, ma'am.
Oh, very hard to make decisions. Okay. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. Next slide. I've just listed some here. They aren't able to think about the future because they're so just dealing with the present. Thinking, difficult concentrating, flashbacks. They keep thinking of what happened. They keep having those memories keep coming back. If they're in another similar situation, they react to it. If they were assaulted by somebody at a certain store, every time they go by that store, their heart races and they have a hard time. They kind of react to that. Okay, next one. What do you think are some emotional or behavioral symptoms of trauma? Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Mhm. Was he ever locked in sometime in his life or no? Maybe. Yeah. Right. And couldn't get out. Or maybe as a small child having the door shut and he couldn't get out maybe. Okay. All right. Any other behavioral or emotional symptoms you can think of?
Ma'am, the example that you gave a while ago about the kid going to a store and not wanting, or whenever they pass by that store, they suddenly feel
Yeah.
fearful, or
Yep.
they don't want to go inside. I think isn't that
Mhm.
more behavioral
Mhm.
also?
Mhm. Okay. Anything else? Okay, go ahead and to the next slide. These are some things here. Emotional sadness. Do you know hypervigilance? They're kind of looking, it's like, what's happening? They're just kind of numb, anger. Can't sleep at night. That's often common. They're scared to go to bed. Sometimes eating. They're overcautious. Okay. All right. Next one. What about spiritual? What are some spiritual or relational symptoms? Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That would be a good one. Anybody else?
Could it be anger at God, ma'am?
Oh yeah. That's a good one. Thank you, Gigi. Anything else?
Backsliding, ma'am.
Pardon?
Backsliding.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
They
Uh,
withdraw from people and relationships.
yes. Withdrawal. That's a good one. All right. Let's go on to the next slide. These are some here that I have listed here. Difficulty going to church. Sometimes church, when they get really quiet and they have a really, really hard time. Question about God's character. How come God didn't save me? Why did God put me in that situation? Does God exist? Why didn't he take care of me? Sometimes they have a hard time being alone by themselves. Relationship issues. One of you already said relationship withdrawal. Okay, I'll go on to the next one. All right. Now, these are some physiological effects of trauma, and I went ahead and typed these out so you can see these. The other ones I didn't type out a lot of information, but your thinking tends to freeze. It's hard for your brain to really think. You have a lot of thoughts about the trauma, but sometimes there's no emotions with them. Sometimes you don't have memory of what happened. The other thought is here, the hippocampus is reduced in size. Now your hippocampus, you have two of them, they're deep in your brain, and they usually are there to help you form new memories and to help you with learning. And these two areas are hippocampus on either side. It's really inside the middle of your brain. There's one on each side. It's really vulnerable to a lot of stress, anxiety, and it can really damage a lot of memory. So you don't remember a lot of things. This is something that people with Alzheimer's have to deal with. They don't have a lot of memory. The other part that it also has something to do with the loss of direction. You don't know what direction to go in or where to go. So it's that, and also forming new memories, memory loss. And sometimes if you've been through a trauma, you don't remember what happened. I mean, it's like everything's kind of, you can't remember it. And so it's part of the memory loss. Okay, go on to the next one. All right, another physiological effect of trauma is your frontal cortex ability is decreased, and probably 40% of your brain has the prefrontal cortex, and it really deals with doing cognitive thinking or task decision making. It does a lot with impulse control and with memory and with speech. This is an area of the brain we often talk about with teenagers. Teenagers, your brain or your prefrontal cortex is not totally mature until you're 26. And so that's why sometimes it's really hard for young people to make good decisions about things, and because that's part of your brain that deals with decision making. Or impulse control. Sometimes, they're angry and they just lash out. Well, it's because the prefrontal cortex of their brain is not fully developed at that point. So that's one of the issues that happens. And it also deals with having a hard time putting words out there to really talk about how they really feel about something. They have a difficult time doing that as well. So that's your prefrontal cortex. Okay, the next one deals with your hormones. Oh, I'm sorry, go back to the next one talks about physiological as your hormones, your adrenaline and noradrenaline released, which really cause your heart to beat really fast. It's sort of, that's the part of your body that gets you ready for fighting somebody or flight, to get out of the way. It's like if a car gets ready, to hit you, and all of a sudden your heart beats really fast and you get real anxious and whatever. Well, it's your adrenaline that starts in your body and gets you ready. Either you're going to fight or flight, run away or attack. Of course, with the car coming at you, you run. So, and then the other one that happens when you're dealing with trauma is also 70% of your brain-bound oxygen then goes to your muscles to get your muscles ready to run or to get out of the situation you're in. And sometimes you just become paralyzed because you just can't move. So those are some of the things that happen when you're in the middle of a trauma. So let's look next at there's these three disorders. The next slide. There's three disorders that we're going to talk about. When you have a trauma, you can end up with acute stress disorder, and that can go on to become post-traumatic stress disorder. And then we'll talk real briefly about complex post-traumatic stress disorder. These are the three disorders when you're dealing with trauma. Okay, let's look at the first one. Sure. All right, just keep going. All right, now when somebody has a trauma, remember that they can just have trauma, but after 3 days, they can be diagnosed with acute stress disorder. Usually the first couple days, they're just trauma, but if it stays for up to 3 days or up to a month, it would be considered acute stress disorder if the symptoms continue. It's basically like post-traumatic stress disorder, but it really occurs in the first month. After a month is over and they still continue to have those symptoms, then they will call it post-traumatic stress disorder. Before the end of 30 days, they will not call it post-traumatic stress disorder. It'll be called acute stress disorder. So when you're talking with somebody who's just had a traumatic experience, if they have post-traumatic stress disorder, well, not yet. They just really have acute stress disorder. After a month, if they still have those symptoms, then it will be called PTSD. This is a severe reaction that people have immediately after a trauma. Okay, go on to the next. These are some of the symptoms. I'll just let you read them of acute stress disorder. Memories, nightmares. They avoid where the trauma happened. They can't sleep. Emotionally, they could be emotionally numb. Okay. Let me know when I can go on to the next slide. Is everybody done reading that? Or looking at that? This is someone who, you know, they're in an accident with a car, a traumatic accident, and they don't want to get in a car. Or every time they have to get in a car, they feel really anxious about it. Or maybe they were driving the car that had the accident and they don't want to drive anymore because they're scared it's going to happen again. Or they go to bed at night and they have these flashbacks of what happened, and they are scared. They have memories of what happened, and they can hear the sounds in their mind of what happened. And it's really hard for them to deal with this. All right, next one. All right, then the second one is post-traumatic stress disorder. So after 30 days, if they still have a difficult time, let's say if they had an accident and they still have a hard time, then they would be called post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's talking about, I know, especially in the United States and living in this world now, there's a whole lot more kinds of stresses going on, I think, than there ever was before. And this talks some about that. There's a lot more people that are dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, and there's just a lot out there. Okay, next one. Now, these are some statistics I put about United States, and I tried to pull up some things about the Philippines. Now, one of you that are doing different types of losses, if somebody wanted to do something on post-traumatic stress, you could do that if you wanted to. That's an option that might be helpful to get more information on that. In the United States, the fifth most prevalent psychiatric illness is anxiety, depression, phobias, and substance abuse. 5.2 million Americans are diagnosed with PTSD. That's a lot of people between those ages. In any year, 5.6% of the population suffers from PTSD. Females, twice the rate as males, and 20% that undergo a traumatic experience will go on to have PTSD. So if you think about that, and it may be the same for the Philippines, more or less, I don't know, but I'm thinking somebody who goes through a traumatic experience, probably 20% of those people, 1 in 5, will go on to have PTSD. Okay. All right. Next one. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, I think that's I think that's a good, I think that's a really good comment. I think sometimes men don't express that, and they hide it or don't want people to know that they're going through that. That's a really good comment. Any other comments on this, or any other?
I have a question for ma'am.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For trauma, is it possible for trauma to go away on its own, or does it really need intervention from other people?
It starts out as just trauma within the first few days, 2 or 3 days or whatever, and then it will go into acute stress disorder. And not always. If it's a trauma, it might not go into acute stress disorder, but sometimes it will, and then it will go into PTSD if it continues. And people oftentimes will need to get help to process the trauma that happened to them. It's helpful if they can get a counselor to process it, or we're at the very end of this, I'm going to talk with you how to do that, do some processing with that. And our time is running away. So anyways, we'll try to get to that a little bit.
Thank you, ma'am.
Help you through that. Thank you for bringing that up. And how to help people process through some of the trauma. Yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll have to go through kind of quick here to get to the end. These were just questions about PTSD in the Philippines, and let's go on again. These are still, PTSD is more hyperarousal, more hypervigilant than acute stress disorder. It gets to be even worse, trouble falling asleep. Okay, go on to the next. More avoidance of things that happen, dealing with the trauma, more emotionally numb. It gets more difficult to avoid the emotions. Okay, go on. Reoccurring thoughts about what happened. Memories occur suddenly. They have flashbacks. Okay, go ahead. I'm trying to hurry through this because I want to get to the end and how to deal with this. Negative changes in belief, fear, anger, guilt, detached. Sometimes they feel like they're outside of themselves and are detached from themselves. They feel like they're kind of living over in a different place, or they see themselves in outside of themselves, and they're not necessarily attached to themselves. If they've been hurt or emotionally, like somebody who's been viciously raped, oftentimes will see themselves detached from who they are. Can't recall part of the events. Okay, next. These are some more issues dealing with spiritual issues: doubt, crisis of faith, anger, detachment from God, avoidance of church and prayer. Okay, go ahead. And one place I read, it talked about PTSD may help a person grow spiritually. This was an interesting comment, because it becomes a deepening of their relationship with God to get through this. And one study, it talked about people who had gone through the traumatic experience. 80% wrote things about some religious ideas or themes, and talked about prayer and relating to God. So I think this can also be a great spiritual way of helping them with this as well. Okay, next. There's also a delayed onset. Some people will have trauma, but have the acute stress disorder, but the post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a more intense amount of the symptoms, may not come till later. Later in life, when maybe something else traumatic happens, and then they'll end up with this. Okay, next. Trying to there's complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and I just wanted to bring this up this is the only slide I have on it. This is really when a person has a traumatic experience over a lifetime or over several experiences. This is like a person that has been raped several times through their childhood, or have had traumatic things happen several different times in their life. And it's extremely difficult to deal with. And the person really needs to go on and get some specialized help to get them through those traumas. And it's a long process of working through that trauma. So it's called complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I didn't go into any more than that, except to let you know that a person who's been through several traumas, especially in childhood, or abuse, neglect, or different things that have happened to them, it can also become complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, this is the last thing we're going to talk about tonight. This is critical incident stress debriefing. I think this is really important. Next slide. All right, there is, if you're with some people that have just been through a trauma, one of the things you can do is you can, like if it's a trauma with people that have been through COVID, or people that have been through a hurricane or a typhoon, or some trauma, you can have some people get together in a group, or you can also do this with an individual that has just been through the trauma. And as they feel safe and are wanting to talk about it, these are some things that you can do to debrief the trauma that they've been through. And the first is provide a safe environment for the person, the family, or the person, or whoever it is, a safe place where they feel like they can trust and talk with you. One of the things you can't do in critical incident stress debriefing is to push this or to make somebody talk that doesn't want to talk about it. When they're ready and when they want to talk about it, then they can do that. The first thing you do as you talk with a person, or if it's a small group that have been through something that's traumatic, an accident or something, let the person talk about the facts of what happened. It's probably the least emotional thing that they can do. Tell us what happened. What happened in the accident? Can you describe what happened? What was that like? And do kind of a facts information. This here talked about to do this debriefing with a person immediately after or soon after. Well, the person may not be ready to do it soon after the situation, but it may take them a little while to be able to do this. But when you work with somebody, help them know it's safe and it's okay to talk to you. Then help them talk about the facts. Then have them go through the thought process. Talk about, what did you think about as you were going through this? What do you think about what happened? And let them do more of thoughts about it. All right, then the next one is more of the feelings that they had. So see, it's starting out with very basic facts. Then it's going to the thoughts. It's getting a little deeper. And then the next slide talks about having them talk about their feeling or their reaction. And this may bring about, the next slide, please. This may bring about some really strong feelings. Oh, I see. I just put these down here. I didn't explain these so well. Yeah, there it is. I put it in the wrong order. They can have some really strong feelings here, and this would be really important to let them process this, help them recognize the feelings, using those words. It sounds like you're really angry with this, or it sounds like you are really scared, and use those observations statements, use those counseling skills that you have. And then the last one would be then helping them look at what's going on physically, psychologically, the different reactions they're having. Like some are saying, I'm not sleeping at night, or some are saying, I'm really anxious and don't want to go back to where the car had the accident. And help them to know that those are very normal feelings to have, because sometimes those are symptoms they're having: physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual. Let them know that those are the ones that are very normal experiences, because sometimes I think they're crazy. I keep having nightmares about this. Well, it's a very normal, it's very normal to have those feelings that you're having, or those thoughts, or those reoccurring dreams that you're having. It's very normal at this stage, working through this trauma. And it helps them to realize, I'm not going crazy, but those are very, very normal feelings. So those are the ones that when you work with somebody in counseling, you start with the introductory phrase. I'm wanting to provide a safe environment that you can share, and introduce yourself, and they can introduce themselves to each other, or if it's just one individual you're working with, and kind of explain, if you'd like me to, I'd like to help walk you through some things that might be helpful in being able to debrief this trauma that you've been through. And the first thing I would, would that be something you'd like to do? And I'd be happy to help you with that. And you can share as much as you want to. And if it's too difficult to share, that's okay. We can stop, because some of it may be hard to talk about. But if you'd like to, this may be helpful to you to process it. The first thing I'd like for you to talk about is describe to me what happened. What happened to this in this situation, or this traumatic event? What happened to you? And then I would go on and say, okay, what are your thoughts about what happened? And then I would move on to, what are some of your feelings? And then talk about, what are some symptoms you're having, at night, some with your thoughts, and with your, physically, what's happening with your body, or emotionally, or mentally, or what are some symptoms you're having, and let them know some of those that are very normal. Okay. So this process, I hope, would be helpful to you when you're working with somebody that is dealing with trauma, somebody that's dealing with complex trauma. You need to see if you can get them in with a counselor. If you can get acute stress disorder, this would be really helpful to use as critical incident stress debriefing to help them with that. Go ahead. Any questions? Uh-huh. Mhm. Mhm. Uh-huh. Mhm. This is more of a stress debrief. The critical incident stress debriefing is more or less to do with somebody who's just been through a trauma. Now, what, that would be more of just using your counseling skills that you have. Can you tell me more about what happened and what, or can you tell me more about it? Or it sounds like you've got have a really difficult relationship with your brother. Can you tell me more about what that was like or what's happened with that relationship? And then let's talk about. Mhm. Yeah. This would be used basically because we talked tonight about a crisis and we talked about a trauma. And a crisis is probably you would use your counseling skills more dealing with a crisis. But it could be possibly, I would say probably more with your counseling skills with a crisis situation, something that's pretty normal that happens to somebody, like they flunked a test at school and to them it's a crisis. Versus a trauma is somebody got hit by a car, would be more of a trauma, something that happens as out of the ordinary. See what I mean? With a crisis, it might be somebody lost their job. So it's caused a crisis with the family. And with that, you could use your regular counseling skills that you have. Versus somebody who was killed by somebody with a gun or a knife or something. That would be a trauma. See the difference? And if it's a trauma, that would be a typhoon came and damaged a whole village and several were killed. That would be a traumatic situation for a whole village. And this kind of critical incident stress debriefing could happen in that village. You could get 3 or 4 together and say, look, if you guys would you like to talk about what happened and kind of debrief this together? And you could have them in a circle and talk about, I wanted to provide a safe place for you. What happened? Tell me what happened, the facts. What do you all think about what happened, the situation? And then talk about feelings about the typhoon or whatever. And then talk about what are some symptoms that are normal. That would happen in a trauma. Somebody who lost their job, and I would still use my counseling skills, but I would use this type of debriefing with a trauma. Whereas if somebody lost their job, or a brother that's having relationship problem, I would say, tell me more about, it sounds like from what you were saying, you lost your job. Tell me what that's been like for you, or what's that like? I mean, you could still ask them if they've lost their job. You could ask them, some facts or information if you want to. What's that like for you, losing your job? And get them to talk about feelings. But that would be more related to using your counseling skills. Does that make sense?
Ma'am,
Yes, go ahead.
can this be also applied to a victim of physical abuse,
Yes.
like a mother, a battered wife who
Yes.
who ran away from her husband or a
Yes,
partner.
yes. That would be a trauma. That would be a trauma. So you could use this to help debrief what happened from the trauma.
Okay.
And this is usually kind of a debriefing soon after it happens, or, maybe a week or two or a month or so. It's kind of a debriefing to help them process what happened in that trauma. So this is really, I could call it a debriefing, trauma debriefing is what I would maybe call this here, these 5 stages here, a trauma debriefing. But with a crisis, you would go more with, you remember with the crisis, I gave you that, trying to go back to my slide here I have on trauma. You remember with the trauma one, Dr. Wright talks about implementing the intervention, taking some action, helping them restore balance, fostering hope, providing support, focusing on the problem, understanding and assess self-image. That was that one. You also, in doing that one, just think about the impact, the withdrawal, the adjustment, reconstruction, and just helping them by using your counseling skills more with the crisis, because you're really not debriefing the crisis. You're really counseling them with the crisis situation. Does that make sense? It's kind of, it's confusing. Is there a way that I can make it not quite so confusing for you all? A trauma is so much more painful, difficult, emotionally challenging. And so right after one happens, trying to get them to debrief it when you can. Or, even if it's several months later, if you have to. And we're going to talk about next time dealing with death and dying, and that situation, and helping somebody dealing with the death and dying situation. A lot of that is the same type of thing, using your basic counseling skills to do that. Okay. So I would do these, this critical incident debriefing is basically in a trauma, something out of the ordinary that happens, that's a traumatic thing, and you can do it in a group with a group of people. Maybe your church has just been through a huge flood and they're dealing with, or through a tornado, a typhoon and stuff, and several of them are just, people have died and houses have been destroyed, and you get 3 or 4 people want to get together and just help them debrief and talk about it. So you would use the critical incident stress debriefing thing. Or if you have one person that wants to talk about that. Sometimes it's good if 2 or 3 can get together and talk about it, because then they talk about, these are the symptoms I had, and then those says, well, I have that same symptoms. I didn't know that was normal, and then you help them know what's normal and what's, not normal. And they have certain symptoms, because sometimes they don't realize, oh, that's part of acute stress disorder. That's a part of the normal process of processing through this. Okay. I'm sorry if I've left you confused. Are you all okay with that? Sort of? Yes? No? Maybe?
It's okay.
It's okay? All right. So
Not really confused.
remember, you have a trauma, then you have acute stress disorder, and that was after 3 days, up to 30 days. Then you have post-traumatic stress disorder, and that's after 30 days. If the symptoms continue, then you can have PTSD after 30 days, and that you can have that for several months. And then you can have complex stress stress disorder if the trauma happened to you several times, like somebody's been raped several times by a person, or a child has been through neglect for several times, or different, or abused for several times growing up, and is more complex and more times has happened. So those are the three things. You have the trauma, and then you have the acute stress disorder, then you have post-traumatic stress disorder, and then you have complex stress disorder, or I mean complex PTSD, I'm sorry, acute stress disorder, PTSD, then complex PTSD. Okay. All right. I'm going to leave my PowerPoint, this one that I had for the class, up. I'm also going to, I closed out, there's 2 PowerPoints, which basically is almost the same thing with maybe just a little bit more detail, but I'm going to open those back up on your course site. So you have these PowerPoints, but the one we have for class is basically the same as the one that I'll open back up, but it may have more detail in the one that's not the not the one used for class, but I'll leave them both up for you. Okay. All right. You guys have studied hard. This is complicated, but you guys have done well, and I think you'll do really well. So anything else that I can do to help? I will work on your verbatims this week and get them back to you, and then you have a quiz that's due Sunday, next Sunday. It shouldn't be real difficult. It's on grieving and adjusting to losses in life and on crisis intervention. It's not on trauma, just the crisis part. Okay. And then think through what kind of paper you want to write, on what kind of losses. Loss of jobs, loss of financial resources, or financial loss, or loss of roles, certain roles that you have in life. Anyways, think through that, and then I will check in with you guys next week, and then you'll have 2 weeks off. Okay. So thank you all. Any other questions tonight or this morning? You guys have a good week and enjoy. Are you all getting lots of tests and papers and things due?
This week is exam week for some of our subjects, PC subjects.
So you don't really have anything. Yeah, you do have that quiz due by next week. I mean, next Sunday night, but you're not going to have trouble with that quiz. I think you'll be fine. My quizzes aren't hard. I think you'll be fine, because we just went over the one on crisis tonight, and grieving and adjusting to losses. We went over that, so I think you'll be fine. Okay. Anything you need, let me know, and I'll work with you all. Any questions you have? You guys are doing great. I'll work on trying to get your verbatims graded this week and get them back to you before Sunday next week. Okay. All right. And then we'll do theological issues of death and suffering and crisis of death. Week 7 and week 8. I'll go over that next week for you. Okay. I think it'll be fun looking at some theological issues of death and suffering. That'll be fun. I think We'll enjoy that. All right, you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank
If
you,
you're
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
You
you're
too.
tired,
Thank you, ma'am.
if you're
Thank you,
tired,
ma'am.
go take a nap.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye
Bless your
po.
heart. I know it's so hard.
Thank you so
You guys are
much.
doing great. Randy, thanks for help with the with the PowerPoints. Yeah. Great job. Thank you guys. You
Thank you,
take care.
ma'am.
Thank you,
Have
ma'am.
a
Thank you.
great day.
Yeah,
You
you
guys are doing
too.
great.